Okay, so Dredge has reminded me of something that I have not paid attention to in a while. Let's talk about it. Dredge. The name is the only thing that I knew about this game. Well, that and some screenshots that gave me a clue about the gameplay. Spoilers ahead, as we will be discussing everything about the game, including the story. Now, some of you might look at this gameplay and quickly figure out that this is a fishing game, and you would be absolutely correct. Yeah, this is so relaxing and oh Jesus, what is chasing me? What am I even fishing for here? What are these monstrosities? Oh no, my lights are out, it's coming for me. Okay, so this is not your usual fishing game where you enjoy some relaxing time whilst fishing and listening to some country music. And to be fair, that much was clear for me before I started. It doesn't have a relaxing name like Go Go Fishing 2024 or Legendary Fishing. Also, why do all fishing game titles sound and look so similar? I understand there's not a lot of room for innovation, but what if I mistakenly play Fishing Sim World Pro Tour instead of Call of the Wild, the Angler? But yeah, this game's name is Dredge, and I don't know about you, but to me dredging sounds a lot more ominous. That means we are, dredging for something, right? Indeed we are, but I'll talk about it in the story part. The name is not the only clue that this game is not your usual fishing game. From the moment you start the game, you are met with the perfect music to set the tone for the rest of the game. I think going around with your boat in this game wouldn't feel as creepy if it wasn't accompanied by this music. In fact, let me see. Creepy music? Not creepy music. Yeah, the difference between them is day and boom, it's suddenly night.
I'm in danger!
So this game has a day and night cycle. You start the day in one of the many cities or ports around the map and you are free to explore and fish to your heart's content. Just make sure you come back at the end of the night though, because everything is out to get you. You have ghost ships. I later found out that they are just anglerfish with boats instead of lights. You have a miasma that whisper things in your ears to drive you crazy, and other sea monsters. You are just a tiny boat, there is no way you can fight those back. The only thing you can do is run and hide to the nearest port or town. The funny thing is, even though these places might have some characters in them, for example you have the fisherman who you can sell your fish to, you have the collector, a mysterious character that gives you quests, and the shipwright who can upgrade and repair your ship. Even with all these characters, the game has a weird way of making you feel alone. Well, for 60% of the game, you will be alone, and for the rest of it, you will wish you were. All these details make such a great atmosphere for the game. Something almost Lovecraftian if I were to compare it to something. It is you against this vast ocean inhabited by creatures that seem out of this world. Well, maybe saying you against them doesn't make too much sense, as for the most part you cannot do much but run away from them or delay your inevitable doom. I talked so much about these horrors, I bet you almost forgot it's a fishing game, right? Don't worry, that is my fault. Playing this game you will not forget it's a fishing game, as you need to fish a lot, so let me break it down a bit. Your character controls a fishing boat where your cargo space is delimited by a certain amount of squares. Everything that you take out to the ocean and back needs to fit in there. So you have to start your boat and... Wait, my boat isn't starting? Ah, of course, it needs an engine. We have less space in the cargo now. Where were we? You start your boat and go around the ocean looking for patches of fish to feed. What is it now? Oh right, I actually don't have any fishing equipment equipped. Ah, silly me, let me quickly go back and install it. Okay, finally, so now I can fish this. Ah, okay, no, I cannot because my fishing rod only allows coastal fish, so I need to have an equipment made to fish ocean fish in order to do this. You get the gist. The general progression is quite simple. You go fish, you make money which you use to buy different types of equipment in order to help you fish more and earn more. Now, at the beginning of the game you start in this small region that almost seems enclosed, and I think this is a fantastic choice. When you first start, you only have one engine. I'm not even sure if this engine works or is just standing still and the world is just moving. It is incredibly slow. So slow in fact that going from the starting city to the closest other port basically takes half a day. And when 5 PM hits... Come out, and I did not want to see what happens if you stay out too long. As such, I spent a bit of time just literally fishing in that bay and going back to sell the fish I proudly captured. Talking about capturing fish, you do that by completing different minigames, reminiscent of Undertale. Just like a cat in a new territory, sometimes I'd gather the courage to venture a bit out of my comfort zone just to catch one fish and realize it's already late and it will take me a few hours to go back, so panic ensures. So the bay is quite interesting as it almost feels like a safe zone. Once you go inside that area, you just know you're very close to safety. Now, some of you might be thinking, that is all cool, but the name of the game is Dredge, not Fish. Well, to be honest, it might as well be called Dredge, but I hear you. Why is it called Dredge? In order to discuss that, we will need to talk about the story of the game. So there are two stories that you are following. Firstly, your character seems to have crashed in this port town. The mayor gives us a fishing boat and asks us to pay for it by fishing. Well, that's how it starts anyway. After a while though, we encounter this mysterious collector asking us to retrieve some trinkets that are lost in the sea. How do we do that? He gives us the tool necessary to go dredging. Aha! There's the name of the game! Second story comes in the form of letters in bottles left in the sea. What do they tell us? They tell us the story of this newly engaged couple written from the perspective of the woman. She writes how her fiancé took her with his boat for a romantic picnic out in the sea. As you explore the map, you find more bottles to find out what happened to the couple. They apparently had an accident, but luckily they escaped unharmed besides losing a lot of items in the ocean. The man then proceeds to spend a considerable amount of time trying to retrieve these items using the same equipment we are using now. Unfortunately, this is where the stories in the bottle take a dark turn, as the woman is afflicted by an illness, all the while her husband found a mysterious casket whilst dredging. The woman then says her husband opened the casket and looked inside. When she looked at her husband's eyes, she saw the void. I do want to know that not all the messages found are from this woman. Some seem to have unknown dates or senders. For example, there are some messages detailing purchases of some trinkets. Others have an unknown writer such as this, where it reads, "It feels like years since I have been warm. I did not expect him to write. He must return. When you left me I was scattered to the winds, but now I almost feel whole again. There's just one thing left to do. Throw me back." Right, so the time I discovered this I had no idea what this all meant, but I will get back to it in a bit. The goal of the game becomes clear at this point though, to help the collector retrieve those artifacts. One found in a rocky area, one found in a desert-like area, one found in a swampy area, and one in a volcanic area. As I was trying to navigate from one island to the other, I did notice something interesting. It seemed to me that because the safe area I was talking about earlier has the lighthouse, wherever you are in the ocean you don't even need to use the map, as you can just use the lighthouse as a guide. It is a beacon of light shining in the night that can guide you home. Back to the goal of the game though, every area has an artifact that you need to retrieve. However, before you can do so, you will need to complete different types of puzzles or fetch quests. Nothing too hard though, the puzzles are quite simple for the most part. Simple. That is the word I found myself thinking about a lot for this game. I want to talk about this for a bit. The word simple in games is often used as a downside. The level design is simple, the bosses are simple, the game itself is simple. However, this is not how I am using it for Dredge. For example, the graphics might be quite simplistic, but that is in no way a detriment. A more realistic style would change the atmosphere of the game completely. I'm certain it would not be as highly praised in fact if it did have realistic graphics. And as a person who plays a lot of games, I feel like sometimes I forget to stop for a moment and appreciate simplicity in games. Always playing games that have tons of mechanics or competitive or games that are made to be difficult. And all these games are still great, but there is something beautiful in simplicity as well. It's funny though, I feel like as a kid I was able to enjoy simplicity a lot more in games. Some of you might be too young to remember, but sometime in early 2000s there was this website where people could upload their games for other people to play. This website was called Miniclip. I remember playing these games so much when I was younger. They were often quite simple, but the core of some of these games were so well done that it didn't matter, it got you hooked. This game is a spiritual successor of that in my opinion. A reminder that simplicity can be enjoyed in a time where a lot of games are just blasting you with stimuli. I got a little bit distracted though, let us continue. One thing I need to note is that the early game feels so much different than later on. In the first few hours everything is scary because of how long it takes to get from one place to another. However, as you dredge for different resources used to upgrade your ship, you have more inventory space, you have brighter lights to use for your ship, you have different methods of catching fish to gain more money, and most importantly, you can upgrade your engines. Suddenly, the game opens up, as you are not stuck in the starting area anymore and you have the whole ocean to explore. Well, almost the whole ocean I guess. Each area you visit has different threats. The swampy one has a mind flayer chasing you, the rocky area has a serpent, the desert islands have this huge open space that hides a massive kraken, and the volcanic area has a swarm of piranhas I think that patrol this area. If they catch you, they call out for their big brother. Every time you collect an artifact and bring it back to the collector, he rewards you with different powers you can use to help progress the story. For example, your boat can enter nitro for a brief period, It can repel monsters for a few seconds or even teleport you back to where it all began. Interestingly enough, I would have thought that this would teleport you back to the port town you crashed based on the wording, but it's just back of the collector. Weird. Each time you deliver an artifact to the collector, he leaves you with cryptic messages. I swear this guy could not look more like a villain than he does. Why am I even helping him? Look at that book he holds in his hand. Does this look like a good character? Well, before we get into that, I want to talk about one more aspect of the game. So this is a fishing game which we established, but it's also a collecting game. Now, I have not played other fishing games to be able to compare, but I was quite surprised by the variety of fish you can collect. There are tons of them. And not only that, each fish you collect has a chance of being corrupted, or sometimes have two different forms of corruptions. Look at this Pokédex right here, gotta catch them all. So that adds one more thing to do in the game if you are a completionist. Or a collector. Talking about collectors, let us give this guy his final artifact. Alright, so it seems that he wants to accompany us on this final mission. Let's go. The final mission sees us going out in the open sea where we get a cutscene. In this cutscene, the collector throws all the artifacts we collected overboard. I just got those, why are you throwing them? This though summons a ghostly lady that starts floating and brings the massive creature out from the sea. Alright, so the town is in flames as well. Right, so I don't think we got a good ending. But that means there is a good ending as well, right? Let's get it. So after turning back time, we found out the previous mayor of the main town got stranded on an island. He tells us to speak with the lighthouse keeper about the Book of the Deep. Okay, so the Book of the Deep is the book that the collector always holds. And in this moment I went back to the collector and wrote in my notes. Wait, is this a mirror? So I have completely ignored the fact that all the other characters you meet don't have any other background to their art. But this collector always stayed behind what I assumed it was a door and only now realized it is in fact a mirror. And the game had subtle ways of telling you this. My favorite one is how this game has parts where you have to take one person from one island to another, but in order to do so you need to feed them in the cargo of your ship, just like other items in the game. However, in the final mission, when the collector wants to join, he is not there because he's you. Another small detail is that when you use the power to return back to where it all started, you return back to the house where the collector is. And after going back to the collector, this is confirmed, as you don't need to take the book from his hand as you had it all along. So you smash the mirror and go back to the lighthouse keeper to tell them you retrieved the book, to which they reply that you always had it. Incredible. This time you are not throwing the artifact down in the ocean. You just need to go to the spot and throw the book instead, which makes a huge monster appear and just eat the whole ship as the main character meets his end. Now that we have the good ending, let's talk about what this all means from what I can understand. So remember how I told you earlier that there are two stories in this game? Well, I lied. They are the same story. The wife that was writing the letters was the wife of the collector, or your main character. It seems to me that he found this Book of the Deep that ended up killing his wife somehow. However, the book promised the collector a way to bring her back. And that way is also found in some letters found in bottles. Specifically, in here, it seems that either the ghost of the dead wife or a monster pretending to be her wrote that when you left I was scattered to the winds and he must return. It feels like years since I have been warm. The scattered parts to me seem to refer to the artifacts we collect to throw them where the wife died. And sure, his goal might actually have been achieved as the wife was resurrected, but at the cost of bringing what seems to be an apocalypse. So instead, the good ending is an ending where the collector has to let go of the past and come to terms with the death of his wife, by throwing the book that promised to bring her back into the ocean. I'm hoping I didn't misinterpret this. Fantastic game. And it was all created by just 4 people from the land of the White Cloud. I'm looking forward to their inevitable next game. As for this game, that is all for now. If you enjoyed this, I challenge you to dredge into the depths and retrieve that subscribe button if you have the space in your inventory. It really does help. With that being said, I'll see you all in the next one. It's going to be something special, that's all I can say. Bye!